Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 29. Before we get into our next race weekend, which is Miami, let's take a look at where the car now sits, because every time you go to put these upgrades in, things don't always quite go how you plan. Partially because it takes a month or two to finish the design, and then you have to manufacture for a week or two before you get it on the car. So by the time you get it on the car, it's been, that 1 to 2 or more months. And by that point, the grid has changed. The other cars have developed as well through that period. So here's where we stand right now with that front wing, rear wing now on the car. And you see top speed wise, this is compared to grid average. So average in the field, our pace is still some ways off. However, it's only marginally. We're not that far behind in pace. Same with acceleration. It's definitely still off, but it's so much closer. I think we were at like 1.83 last season in terms of acceleration. I mean, we've come a long, long ways and are almost to that grid average. We still don't quite have that straight line speed where we need it to be, but it is so much closer now. Anyway, the low speed cornering has come a tremendous way, as it was barely above 2 Gs when we started. It's now 2.5, and closing in on that grid average. Medium speed is nearly there. It's almost equal to the grid average, and our high speed is now better than grid average. So you can see that is one strong area for us. In DRS, we are definitely a bit better off than we are in the regular top speed, and that's one reason why I've been comfortable running in those DRS trains, or pushing to get into that DRS train and then kind of going from there. And that's one of those primary ways where in the one lap that is qualifying, we're still towards the back end of the grid. But then in the race, we end up almost in the points. What's the key difference? Well, the key difference is DRS. You don't properly get it in qualifying. I mean, yes, the flap is open and you're going faster, but so is everybody else during that stretch. So you're not gaining the advantage of it. Well, anyway, our extra, 16 kilometers an hour that we have from flap closed to flap open closes that gap. It definitely closes that gap on the field. We're still a little bit behind, but our acceleration is now equal to grid average, and that's that is that step forward. Dirty air cornering is something that has progressed by an insane amount, which is allowing us to stay in that DRS range. Remember, first half plus of last season, we had to push just to stay in DRS range a lot of the time. Now it's comfortable. Our low speed dirty air cornering, I believe, was 12%. 12% when we started out. Our medium speed was about 20. We have made just monumental leaps in this area compared to anywhere else. The low speed is nearly grid average, 2.5% away now. Medium speed, again, is like right there, 0.5%. And the high speed is now better than grid average by almost a full percent. Brake cooling and engine cooling are still some ways off everybody else, but again, we've made progress there. And there's rumors out there that they don't mean much in the game as of right now. Just like tire wear didn't mean much unless you fell below 30%. Previously, fuel was something you can get away with easily. This update, the 1.8 update that did finally go live, last episode was the first time we were on the new update. I thought maybe we were on it for the 2 previous episodes going. It was supposed to be released, hadn't been released. Well, it's released. It's out. And the fact of the matter is the update has made the game quite a bit more difficult, and it's adding those layers of depth to the game that not many people, but some people felt was lacking. And I think it's smart. You get not bare bones, but you get the game, you get the core out, have it functioning, have the the bugginess of it be minimal, fix those, and then start adding those layers into the game. They probably had those layers in testing at some point, and the sum of the parts was probably a bit too buggy. So you roll back a few layers, clean it up, get it running smooth, get it out. You go from minor testing of a handful of people in your testing department to widespread, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of players. You get that feedback, you get that data, you realize where you need to improve, how to improve, you fix, and then you start layering in the depth to the game. That's what you do. Now, a second addition to the game is going to add more depth to the game, more complexity to the game. You're going to add in the the multiplayer. You're going to add in the custom teams at some stage in second or third editions. But meanwhile, you get that core of the gameplay and the added depth, those layers that we're starting to see now in these updates. You get all of those running smoothly before you enter those second and third editions, so that you can dedicate your time and effort, your focus on adding major complexities to the game, such as multiplayer, or such as custom teams, such as maybe you get to go through F2, you get to go through F3, maybe you gain an option in a check mark in the setup for your league, that you can do something that's not quite realistic to the real world, but something that many players would love, and you check mark a box that says promotion relegation, right? Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be amazing? Motorsport Manager had that, right? For those who are have come from that franchise, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. It's a phenomenal element to the game, being able to create an F3 team, or say create a W Series team, like go way down. Let's get down to those lower regional F3 or F4 level type competitions. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, if let's for a second take like the mecca of sports simulation games, Football Manager, and especially with mods, with mod support. You get, by the way, mod support, right? Mod support, second, third edition, please. Anyway, you get down to 10th tier of English football. Here you can get down to maybe it's not all licensed, maybe the licensing is the F1, F2, F3, but then you get the unlicensed additional ones. You get your Indy Lights and IndyCar. Maybe you go crazy and throw in NASCAR and all its tiers, but you get those regional FIA championships. Wouldn't that be something if all of that was here and not with this level of detail, right? Broken down into those smaller tiers where the rule sets become a little bit different. That's layers, and that's layers that give incredible depth. And by the time you have something like that, by the time you're adding those layers into the game, never mind a three, I gotta be careful not to say 3 year, a 3 edition license that they have right now with the FIA. By that point, I think you've got something on your hands, like Football Manager, that is something you could sell every year or 2 years on a scale that will easily pay to keep that license, to retain that license, and like Football Manager, expand by purchasing, picking up more licenses year by year by year, and expanding unlicensed areas into licensed areas more and more. Get Formula E in here, etc., etc. Would be so excited with that. Gosh, that was a tangent that I did not plan on going into, but it just felt so good to have that discussion here and now. Let's start pushing forward a little bit. We have some development points to put into some drivers. I'm not sure where we're at on research. We do have a week and a half till that next race. We may have something coming out, but we also do have, finally, a little bit of a balance. It's not crazy healthy, but it's gotten there. Over these last 2 to 3 race weekends, we now have 13 million, so we might finally be able to turn our attention back over to the facilities, and obviously we know where we need to develop, and that is the car development facilities. 11 out of the 30, where everything else is, nearly done. One thing we've been experiencing of late is, the condition of a lot of these has deteriorated, and that cost to refurbish is pretty expensive, especially in the car development facilities. So I think for me, the next upgrade we want is the suspension simulator. For one, it's the last thing that's at level 1. For 2, it's already, down on condition. And 3, it's going to come with a bonus. Refurbishment, yeah, no thanks. But look at that. I mean, look at this difference in cost. You're going to go from 1.6 up to 2% at a cost of 3 million, or you can take 7.5, barely more than twice the cost, and push it all the way up to 4%. Now it's just brake cooling suspension, but come on, it's the natural way to go about this one. So let's get that on the go. And that nice thing Jack doing right now, just doing FP1, is picking up more experience points in a race weekend than Albin is, because of the high, because of the bonus you get for doing FP1 with a reserve driver, but in particular because of the high development versus the average development. It takes where Albin should have a little more experience, but because of that, the average growth versus high growth, the bonus for that part gives Duin more XP. Now that Albin has reached 80 plus in pace, I'm going to change my focus just for a little while to 2 areas. 1, accuracy. We want consistency in his driving. We want him not running wide, not taking damage, and keeping those clean laps. So consistency with the pace that he has. So I'm going to add 2 to 3 points here. It doesn't need to reach 80 or anything like that, but 2 to 3 points will make that little bit higher. And then we're going to focus on getting that defending up to about a 75, especially as the car starts to move up the grid. He's got to hold off guys coming from behind him and not just overtake. He's got to keep guys behind a little bit better than he does now. So we're going to spend, the next 7 to 8 points on those 2, and then we'll go back to just increasing pace. And Duin already has pace. His problem is smoothness, so that's where we're going to improve adaptability. Wet weather is going to be a serious problem that's going to need some serious attention. Overtaking and defending also are going to require some serious attention. Control's not perfect, but it's that smoothness. I mean, he's terrible on tires. Suspension research just completed. I have a few days though until any manufacturing can begin, as we've got a lot of new parts on the car and just trying to build up our pool for the year. So I don't think anything's going to be ready for Miami, but by the next race weekend we should have suspension upgraded for the car. But then our next project is a rear wing upgrade, so we're going to go kind of right back into that rear wing, knowing that drag is still, a big part of the car that needs time and effort. This is going to take at least a month and a half to complete though, so it's going to be close to 2 months before we see the next rear wing upgrade. But that's fine, that's really not that far away. Boost, not significant, but I also am not putting in a ton of our research tunnel time into this one, as we've got some other areas I'd rather put a larger focus on. It was a hard decision for me to make, but I decided to stick with the race engineers we have. They're not terrible, there is better, but the cost to get better, we wouldn't have had significant upgrades in the engineer department, and then you lose that communication piece that you already have, that that built-in we've spent time together element. So try to stick with these guys and see them develop in time. For now we're focusing on that feedback so that we can get those bonuses during practice a bit easier, a bit better. So Erwin, up to a 78 overall now.
We're in the state of year-round summer. It's the Miami Grand Prix, and we're here in Florida at the Miami International Autodrome. The streets of Miami Gardens will come alive with the roar of racing, and the excitement is only just beginning. Spectacle is the name of the game here in Miami, with a stadium at the heart of this track. With long straights and S-bends, not unlike Suzuka's Sector 1, proper ERS management is sure to give drivers an edge towards victory. At this early stage in the season, there are still plenty of opportunities for things to change. In this sport, there simply are no guarantees. What will happen this weekend? Only time will tell.
So I happen to live in the part of the United States, the Northwest, that is most reputable for rain. However, we get nowhere near even half of the total rain that you get in Miami. Miami is far, far wetter. Now, the difference between the two is we get light rain far more days out of the year, hence the reputation. They tend to get bucket loads of rain in Miami, coming off that Caribbean and Atlantic, especially during hurricane season like we're experiencing right now in the real world. At the time of recording, there's one bearing down on Florida at the moment. Well, anyway, heavy rain predicted for Friday, light rain on Saturday and Sunday. We'll see how that impacts the race, but that could be a great opportunity for us because the track doesn't suit us terribly well. It's not terrible track for us, I would say, but it's definitely not one of the better tracks for our car. Rain could change that. I would think we're going to be outside of the points otherwise, but if we do get some rain, that could be what we need to get into the points this weekend. Entering qualifying, Porsche setup not quite locked down. We were in the low 90s. I think the setup we have now is going to push us towards that 100%. It was that last one, almost there, and I think we've got it right this time, but it's not done testing, so we're not going to have the benefit at least through qualifying, so he's probably going to be a little bit slower than he would normally be, probably out in Q1, and I'll be honest with you, I don't think Albon's going to get out of Q1 either. I think we are in for another, 16th, 18th type performance where we're ahead of the Aston Martins and maybe squeezing past one more car. That seems to always be what our one-lap pace is these days until we get out there in the actual race. Albon, 96%. That's enough. We've got 14 out of 15 for his bonuses with the track acclimatization not there and won't be there all season long with getting that FP1 session under his belt. Fresh engine in both cars and a new gearbox last race weekend, so second time use on both of those. We still have the original ERS, and the Red Bulls and Aston Martins pull out right in front of us, and you can see Porsche was really held up by Perez there. I think Albon may have gotten past Verstappen just before the braking zone. Albon's time much better. Porsche loses a second and a third, so huge time loss for Porsche. He's going to need to go back out immediately, and we do know that tire wear is a thing, so Porsche's time isn't going to be great, but I'm going to get both of them out there on a second lap on that set anyway, just in case. I don't think Albon will improve his, but I do think Porsche will almost certainly improve his time. Alright, so giving both of them a second chance, Russell coming around and trying to get past Porsche. I think Russell's time might have been hampered there by Porsche as he went through. Albon stays out of the way. Albon's got nice clean air. Porsche has Bottas ahead of him, and Bottas is on a slow lap. So again, Porsche has been slowed up. This time it's going to be Russell catches him on the straight, so that part's okay. But I do think Porsche barely improves his time. Albon, P12, not bad. So as for that desirable banker lap, Albon got it. Porsche never did in 2 attempts. And here you go. You got everybody starting to head out. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This is just about it. We've got to get Porsche out there a little bit early to make sure we do not get caught out. So we're going to get him going and then get Albon going. And let's hope we're not too late on Albon. But Albon's time is definitely better off. I'm a little worried about Albon, that I might have waited a little too long. I thought there were still 3 or 4 cars left that had not come out yet. So I am slightly nervous about getting him out in time, something that I've been pushing a little too far lately. We got the laps in, so Albin crosses the line with about 7 seconds to spare. So we were good on that part. Both drivers will get their clean lap in. Let's check in on what their times are like as we set this up. Green for Porsche. Naturally, Albin, we'll see if he can improve. They are both green in Sector 1. Russell up to 4th. Ocon, Norris. Ricardo has moved ahead of us, but just barely. So we've got a real chance Porsche improves. If Albin can improve, he'll be ahead of Ricardo. Because there's almost no gap there. Schumacher and Stroll both improved, but not out of Q1. So Albin is at least ahead of those two. And whoever that was bumps way up the order. We've got Magnussen and Vettel for all that's left behind us. Albin now onto the bubble, but both green in Sector 2 as well. Can we improve our time? It's stayed dry so far. It's gotten very cloudy here. Porsche up to P14. He's out of Q1. Albin's the only one left. Magnussen's ahead. Albin does need to improve his time if he's going to get ahead. And Albin up to P12, so Porsche on the bubble. Both cars, for the very first time, have escaped Q1 on merit, on pace alone. No craziness, no wet weather. Nobody getting caught out. Everybody got a clean run in on that final lap, and both cars were fast enough. So we are slower this weekend, and yet we finally get the clean run we needed, the timing we needed, and we are into Q2 with not one but two cars, and that is Magnussen, Ricardo, Vettel, and then Schumacher and Stroll. You can see how far off the pace they are. I mean, 4/10 behind Vettel, and that was close. Quarter of a second was all that was in it, all the way down to Vettel, right? The three guys we beat plus the Aston Martins were very much alone now as that 10th quickest. But those guys look like they're not going to be attempting a second run, so this could be really good for us with that possibility of moving up the grid a little bit. We'll see what happens on this lap. We ride with Porsche. And let's go ahead and see how he goes along for this lap once we get around to the start-finish line anyway. And yes, confirmed those guys are not coming out on track. So here we go. Starting our flying lap, our final one of Q2. In the rain. No benefit today of timing as it was raining at the start of the session. The track is less damp than it was though. There you go, track just starting to dry out as we are pushing, so that could impact times in a positive way. Porsche up to P12, just a second off of Verstappen, and Albin P9, he will make Q3. Yes, he does. Tsunoda, Ocon, Porsche, and those fresh tires could easily give us a few tenths of a second better than what we have right now. That's not going to be enough to compete with these guys. He was faster. He was faster in Q1. In fact, all of these guys were faster in Q1. A good 0.3 of a second, so there was less grip. Realistically, we would have been only gaining 0.2, which I was saying maybe 3. Actually, it looks like there was just less grip. Good thing to save the tires.
The time has come to fight it out. It's race day.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. Alpine demonstrated a lot of grit during qualifying here, and will be hoping that the hard work pays off when it comes to the race. And the weather is sunny here today, apart from a few clouds. Let's hope they remain scattered on the horizon.
57 laps await our competitors here in Miami, so may the best driver win.
With only 70% accuracy in our race reports, I've got a mix of strategies that are going to all be dependent on when the rain comes and how much rain comes. But it definitely looks like we're going to get rain. I mean, we have as high as 85% at one stage in the race. Early light rain may or may not get to the point where we have to switch. It might just make the track damp. And it depends on the quantity, it depends on if it actually comes, when it comes. So to be safe, you could just about make the mediums work long enough for the rain to come. But what if it doesn't come right away? Then you have to pit. And then the rain does come, and then you have to pit again just a very short while later. So the safer option is to go out on the hards and ensure that you can get all the way, because if you look at strategy B here, if this rain doesn't come, especially the first sequence or two of it doesn't come, and then you get just a little light rain here, the rain's really not going to kick off until you get to about here. And you can see the hards can just about get you there. So we're going to go on the hards to be safe. And then when that rain comes, make the quick choice that we have to make based on how hard is it raining, how quickly is the track getting wet. And then either we have a two-stopper, intermediates all the way, expecting that there's not going to be a lot of heavy rain, though right about here, it's going to rain a bit harder through there. But how hard? Is it going to get hard enough to switch to the wets? So as a just in case, we do have that wet strategy, especially if it picks up here to that point. But tactics are going to be big in this race. I think they could very much impact the outcome by quite some margin. And our weather reports being less than perfect could play a role today. And we could very much find ourselves towards the back, in the middle, towards the front. There could be chaos. There could be lots of pit stops. Let's hope that we are 2 stops at the most. I think regardless of outcome, that could impact us in a positive way to at least have us fighting for points. By the way, there is another view available, and looking at that view doesn't give you quite the detailed information you need here. So what I'm most worried about on this one is the track water, right? That's the blue line. So there's 0. But what is this? Is that above 1? Is it below 1? This is the lowest point here, you can see. And again, is that below 1? Is this above 4? I'm guessing that 1 would be somewhere around here. So we would be at or thereabouts with 1 throughout. And maybe it just drops. Wouldn't it be nice if some guys pit here, put on softs, and then go back out? Maybe this is just hitting 4, but it's definitely not staying there. But we'll see. Again, we are only 70% accurate, so I think what we're looking at is the hard to intermediate 2-stopper. Starting on the hard, compound's going to come with one major drawback. Our pace is going to be less, not only throughout the stint, but primarily when it comes to getting off the line. So we easily could be dropping back a position or 2 off the starting grid depending on what other teams do. However, if they opt for the softs or the mediums, they are surely going to pit, hopefully before the rain comes. The mediums might just make it, but that's going to be pretty iffy on that tactic, on that strategy. So we could benefit greatly if other teams opt for something other than the hards, but it might cost us a position or 2 early on. So to help combat that, we're going to underfuel by a couple laps, which comes with 2 things. One, if it's raining, you're going to use less fuel naturally, so we're going to make that up. But it also means we're going to have to not push for longer periods of time. So we'll see. We'll see how things go.
I don't want to tempt fate, but there are quite a few clouds overhead as we look at the lineup on the grid. Here we have Alexander Albon. They're in the front half of the pack, so there's plenty of potential for them. And looking at the second Williams car, they'll be starting the race from the bottom half of the grid, so there's a fair bit of ground to make up. The race start is mere seconds away. And this is it, the Miami Grand Prix. And it's lights out, and away we go.
Okay, race underway. Checking in on that position. Porsche still P13. Albin still P10. You can see as we approach that first turn, Corsair looks to be going backwards a little bit. Same with Albin. Can they hang on though? Can they hang on? Albin P11. Corsair looks like he's going to hang on to P13. So one position lost is definitely not bad, especially when it's combined for the two cars, but Sonoda has beaten us off the line. Let's quickly check in to how everybody else is looking. About half the grid on the hards, nobody opting for the softs. Roughly half the grid on mediums. With any luck, the rain will come down just that little bit later, and those on the mediums end up having to pit just before. That's the big test here. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're aiming for. As Corsair having a look, he's got that overtake on. Attack. Can you make the move? Nope. He was side by side there for a little bit, but we know that with that rain coming, we're probably in good shape here early on. Down the straight. Let's give it the straightaway and see what we can do if we can have another look at the Alpine.
Just focus on the Haas.
Just lost it.
Clearly,
getting on the gas a little too early,
very
exiting the apex and lost the rear end. Got the oversteer, couldn't correct.
Increase pace.
And looks like it's already cleared. He's continued on. So did not take him out. Might have some light gearbox damage. Albin down to P12 as he's been passed by Ocon. Ocon's 1.7 behind, so there is a gap there. This is that front of the train. Can we put him under pressure with DRS? Here is that DRS. This is our one chance at it, and then we'll back off if it doesn't happen. Corsair trying to follow behind. And we are up beside Ocon, but we have not completed the overtake as of yet. The job is done.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Back to neutral. And the gap ahead is at 1.3 as we close those guys down. That means we're not going to have DRS upcoming here.
That's a good overtake from
Ocon and Albin regularly switching positions here. Verstappen on the mediums is pulling away. But again, if he has to pit before the rain comes, it'll put him well behind. And that's our thing too. We seemingly have the pace to beat Ocon, but we don't really have the pace to keep up with those ahead of us as we are on that hard compound. And the moment we get ahead and lose that DRS, that puts us off that pace. So lap 8 now, Verstappen not pulling away very far. His advantage, not quite 5 seconds now, just exceeding 5 seconds. And if that pit stop comes, as Albin once again gets around Ocon, if he makes that pit stop, it's going to set him way back. So it's definitely a roll of the dice as we have another competitor crash on track. And concertina effect as we come up on that crash, and it's Leclerc, so no wonder it's one of the front cars. Was he second place? Being challenged by Perez. Oh, same place, and Perez just comes to a stop and everybody else holds up. So sector 1, yellow flag. But good news for us is that brings us right back up on that group ahead as Leclerc actually resumes racing from the position he was in. All it did is open up a sizable gap to Verstappen. So Verstappen gains 5 seconds and it bunches everybody else up behind. Albin again falling off, and actually Ocon was falling off as well, and Albin has lost Ocon now. Big gain after that Leclerc spin that just held up the entire field. Got around both. And Sonoda, Ocon into the pits. Yes, it's happening. It's happening, but what tires are they going to come out at? Are they going to come out on intermediates and lose a ton of time the next little while? Or are they going to have to pit twice? As we are now back up into the points with Albin, Corsair up to P12. And let's see what they come out on. as Sonoda, Ocon, and Zhou are the first to enter the pits. So those on the mediums, 3 have absolutely opted for the wrong strategy. But how many more can get caught out before the rain comes? Yellow flag, sector 1. Porsche ran wide? No. Let's hope that rain holds off a little bit longer, and those on the mediums opt to pit because Sonoda, who's been behind the Aston Martins this whole time, has not been able to get past one of them as of yet. You've seen that drop off. Rain starting, and the mediums have not pit yet. 0.25, 0.3. We're just starting a lap, so it's too late now to pit for the current lap. It might be time to pit on this next lap. It's already up to 0.6, 0.7. It looks like we are going to double stack if it's already like this. Gotta lose the 2 seconds. Well, it's not even 2 seconds, right? What is our gap?
And box.
We are interval-wise 3.1. No, 4. 4 seconds behind. So the double stack might not even slow Porsche down. What could slow us down is what pit road looks like, as you can see how slowly we are moving around the track right now as we head to the straight. Being where we're at is not good. Albin losing a ton of pace right now. No, most of the cars are not pitting yet. Okay. Most of the cars have not come into pit road this time. This could be really good for us. There's a lot of cars pitting though. There is a lot of cars, but some cars opted to go around again. Albin out without having to hold up for others, and Porsche in without waiting on his teammate. And does he get out? We both get out instantly. That is ideal. Ideal. And look at that. We're ahead of the Aston Martins, who have not pit yet. Okay, let's check that status. Let's see, where are the cars? Verstappen pit. You have 4 front runners that still have yet to pit. Norris and Sonoda have yet to pit. Albin, use that overtake. Go aggressive. Goodbye, this guy.
Easy overtake. Got it.
Come on, you're stuck behind Sonoda.
We think you can reduce lift
There
and
you
coast.
go. Okay. And now back
Copy.
off. And drive away from the guy. Back to neutral. Okay, check in on Porsche, who's got the same situation.
Increase lift and
We are
coast.
stuck with 2 slow drivers. Overtake, overtake, come on.
Good job, good job.
He's past 1. He's up to P14. But Schumacher is crawling around track, and Porsche is stuck. Come on, Porsche. Drive past him. Come on, here's the straight. Here's your time. Pull up beside him. Attack. You're crawling. You're crawling! Go! Go, 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 go. Deploy. Back to standard. Don't crash. Okay, P10, P13. And we've got a bunch of cars in the pits. Bunch of cars in the pits. Albin, back up into the points. Now P8. P9. Mercedes just ahead, that's fine. Let him be. Our race is not with him. That's P9 for Albin. Porsche comes around in P11 with Bottas in between. And that's going to put everybody on the intermediates. And look at those guys who waited and waited and waited. Look how far behind they are. That's everybody on the intermediates. 1.4. Track is just damp. But you can see how a lot of guys were just crawling around the track there. And we're now going to have a significant advantage. Some of them still not even out of the pits yet. And we are more than half a lap ahead. Now, Verstappen, way ahead. Way, way, way ahead. But Albin, 50 seconds down, just 20 seconds behind Sainz. Hamilton, Gasly, wow, he's way up the order. He's going to have a great race as a result. But that's the Alpine. We're not so worried about them. In fact, all of the competitors that we have behind us. All of them. Every last one. Ocon, way behind. But otherwise, you're looking at Guan Yu Zhou also way behind. Vettel is behind. Ricardo and Norris are behind. And we are looking at a healthy gap. 50 seconds, 106. So we're 16 seconds ahead of our nearest competitor. Bottas is a threat for sure.
I think the track is dry condition.
Track dry. Let's see if anybody opts to pit in and change back. The chaos of switching back and forth, the extra pit stops that some teams may opt to do could benefit us. I think we are on the right compound for the time being. No reason to switch. Perez is switching though. Perez is switching back. And look, the rain's already picked up again. 1.25. What's he putting on? Is he going to come out on the dry compound? Wrong strategy call. Look how fast he's going backwards. And he's holding up the cars behind. Gasly now pitting. What's he pitting for? He was already on the intermediates. 1.8. Track is very wet. Perez is pitting once again, and he is holding up Bottas. He is holding up Bottas, and here comes Pourchaire. Just behind Russell, it looks like. We are still just behind Russell. Russell is not driven away from us. Pourchaire, go aggressive. And we've got Bottas to the inside. We've gotten around Gasly already, and we have passed Bottas. It's now P7 and P8. Perfect timing there.
Williams.
Full straight separating Albon and Pourchaire, though. So there is a pretty sizable gap there, but that is because of Gasly, who has once again pit. And look where they are. P19, P20. So two cars have messed up their strategy. Does look like it's going to dry out in a little bit. So we're going to have to take a look where we're at in the grand scheme of things. It's lap 28 already out of 57, and we are running both cars comfortably in the top 10. Albon in particular. There's a lot of cars. I say it's supposed to rain a lot. They're saying maybe not so much. But it looks like rain throughout the rest of the way. So if we do get that minor drying for a little bit, it will not last. So these tires just do not look likely to make it all the way to the end of the race. There is going to need to be another stop. So we've been going aggressive with Pourchaire, and Pourchaire has been gaining. He's picked up about 3 seconds on Albon. We're going to now push with Albon as well, especially while Albon drives in clean air. The smart thing here is to know that one more stop is coming, regardless of what happens with the wet weather, and that driving a little more aggressively is going to be the way to go. Pourchaire is already about 5% further down on the tire wear, but knowing that there's an extra stop to be had out there. So we might as well get on with not trying to conserve, not trying to stretch for a one-stopper. It is a two-stopper. 2 sets of intermediates are going to be required. Otherwise, the pace is just not going to be there. Not pushing with the fuel, though, again, as we went light. And there it is. That pit window is entering. Track it didn't stop raining, by the way. So it is still, it's less. So we ride on board with Albon, who's in no man's land in P7 right now. And we have a race situation update. So Verstappen, comfortable lead, more than half a minute ahead. And of course, this happened in 2 ways. 3 ways. He started on pole, and he started on the medium compound where all of those around him started on the hard compound. So he pulled away right from the start. Second thing was Leclerc, who was running in P2, was 5 seconds behind already, spun, concertina effect, slowed everybody else up, and got going still in P2. Not time to pit yet, though. Not time to pit yet. We will pit. But that means we're halfway through where we needed to be. So from here on out, we're just helping ourselves later on. Pourchaire will pit before Albon, as I think once we get down to about 45%. we'll go ahead and pit before we lose too much pace in these tires. Crash in Sector 1. Crash in Sector 1.
We've had a crash.
Perez from from 19th has crashed. Oh my. But the race continues on. Yellow flag's already cleared. He moves on. So it did not impact the race. But here comes Pourchaire down pit road. We ride with Pourchaire as he heads down pit road. Intermediates, 2 intermediates. And that is our pit stop done. Now for the moment, it's going to put us behind track position wise. But again, we're able to drive aggressive where others are not. Sonoda is ahead, unfortunately. I'm guessing we're going to be able to catch up to him though. And I'm making the assumption that the rest of the field is going to have to make one additional stop in the coming laps. In the next probably 4 to 5 laps. Or at the end of this race, their pace is going to drop off significantly, where ours is not. So we'll see if we can gain back what we lose here. That's Pourchaire done. Albin continues on for the time being. I think we can get one additional lap out of him before he pits. But he's doing it from a very strong P7. Again,
boxing this lap.
This is an aggressive strategy.
Okay, box.
But trying to spread it out, spread the love. Right? Everybody else is going to end up pitting again and driving normal. So we are gaining pace. Let's hope they are pitting, and if they don't, we know they're going to be really, really slow in the final laps. I think I've repeated myself about 3 times. Let's just speed things up and see how things go. Driving with Albin now. We're going to hit the backstretch in a moment. He does not. We hold P7. Nice. Nice. Actually, still a good advantage over Bottas, actually. So we stay in P7 and are good to go till the end of the race. So we're definitely looking at a P7 now for Albin. Excited by that one. Pourchaire still has a great chance at points, but he's got work to do. Let's go ahead and ride with Pourchaire, who has caught up to Sonoda already. We do have the ERS. We could think about making a move in the right time.
And there's
Back
an
to
overtake
P11
from
for
Williams.
Pourchaire. Meanwhile, Albin already driving away from Bottas. And somebody pit. Norris just pit. Perez had to pit after his crash. So those two good to go to the end of the race. We are good to go to the end of the race, and you're seeing a whole lot of the field now dropping below the 50% threshold. They are going to start to lose pace soon and be forced to pit with 10 laps to go. Or try to last 10 laps on those tires and lose a ton of pace. Albin, meanwhile, didn't even lose a position by driving aggressive and pulling away and then pitting, and he's going to pull right back away. Pourchaire, meanwhile, little work to do to get back up to P8. 3 cars more to pass, but you can see how quickly we are catching Vettel at this point. So both cars doing a mixture of conservation. Ricardo into the pits. All right, there's one more out of the way. Pourchaire back into the points. Again, we have a look to the inside. This is where we want to be if we can get him in the braking zone, and we do. And it looks like we might have a pass. Can we finish? They're still side by side a little bit. And there you go. It's complete. Back to balanced. Back to neutral. And that's another position for Pourchaire. Bottas into the pits. Can Pourchaire make the overtake on Bottas? We were holding up Bottas before. So where will Pourchaire be in relation to Bottas here in a moment? P8 for now. Taking a look behind. Is not even there. We just saw him coming around the corner. just coming off pit road. Bottas with Vettel and Tsunoda in between, who still have yet to pit. So that's back to P7 and P8. Now Sainz into the pits. That's our one last chance at an overtake. Otherwise, it looks like we are headed for a P7 and P8. Albon still has not saved enough fuel. In fact, Pourchaire has not either. Pourchaire. Fuel situation is getting better, going conserve, but we may have to back off on the drive style at some point. Pourchaire well ahead of Vettel at this point, as Vettel has not pit. Let's go standard for a little bit. Get into the fuel window we need to get into. Leclerc into the pits. He's going to come out ahead of Albon. Or is he? Albon comes around the corner, and Leclerc has gone out of sight. Just ahead of us. Cars just hitting neutral on the fuel with a few laps to go. There you can just see Leclerc just make it out, possibly on your screen. I can see him on mine anyway. Side by side with the Alpine, trying to make the overtake and trying to get on that gas to get the better exit. Pushes a little too hard and puts it into the wall. But no major damage. All 20 cars look like they will finish the race today, and we will just make it into the fuel window that we need to. Now Pourchaire has one fewer lap to complete at this point, as he is the first car a lap down. Albon, meanwhile, has an extra lap to go. So Pourchaire is going to easily make the fuel. Somebody has spun. Somebody has spun. Who is it? Who is it? Was it Pourchaire? Pourchaire looked really slow through there. Oh, it was Verstappen. Verstappen spun here on the final lap, turn 1. Pourchaire had to stop to let him go, though. I don't know if that was the blue flags doing their thing. A win for Verstappen and a P8 for Pourchaire. Hamilton on backstretch, well behind, but he's worked his way through the field. Finishing ahead of both Ferraris, and that's going to be a really good result for Mercedes to get a P2 today. Alonso, Alfa Romeo, looking like a P3 for them. Dry weather predicted. Dry weather predicted. But rain has held out. Only the two cars making the strategic blunder as Hamilton crosses the line in P2. Alonso just behind him in P3. Here comes Sainz for P4. Russell looking at a P5. P7 and P8. Great result today for a team that wasn't quite there with the strongest car, but we made the right move at the right time that put us in the right place. The hard compound was definitely the way to go, as some cars ended up pitting early. Others just stretched, just made it. Mediums, we probably could have made it. And that might have given us a chance at slightly higher up the grid. However, Leclerc was the only one that might have given us the opportunity to challenge.
Very impressive showing today.
We're going to do terribly well to beat Leclerc. So I'm really happy with a P7, P8 result. Great points for the team today. That's going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now. 10 points for the team. 8th for Albon. 11th for Pourchaire. And back up into 5th place ahead of Alpine with 33. See you later.